All right, guys, we are in the midst of some crazy PR games right now coming from Blake Lively's side. So I became aware a couple of weeks ago that somebody in Blake Lively's camp was shopping around what they claimed to be HR complaints to various tabloids and publications, namely TMZ, Daily Mail, and the New York Post, sending them these HR complaints saying these were real and these were ignored, all painting Justin Baldoni to be a monster, okay? Interestingly enough, all of these publications, which are known to just like publish whatever, they publish things about me that are completely untrue, they don't care about defamation or anything like that, all declined to publish this. Main reasons being that these complaints coming in were heavily redacted, and yet when they reached out to the person that was shopping them and was like, hey, like, we have some basic questions about this, like, why are you blacking out the dates? Why are you blacking out the complainants? They got a little iffy on the details, and they didn't want to take the risk for potentially being sued for defamation without being able to legitimately confirm that these were real complaints. Now, if you're a PR agent and you are desperately trying to get out these complaints for your clients, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, to help change the environment of everybody who's calling them out on their BS, what do you do next? You can't get any of the big guys to publish it. So you start leaking to TikTokers, independent journalists, because you view these people to be stupid, right? So you're like, okay, they'll absorb the risk. They'll definitely publish this if they think that they have an exclusive. And essentially that's what's happened. They started shopping this around to independent journalists. And I'm now going to show you the complaints that they've been shopping around. Here's the initial CRD complaint as published by the New York Times. You've got Wayfarer, you have Jamie Heath, you've got Justin Baldoni, Steve Sarowitz, even Jennifer Abel, Jed Wallace down in Texas, but nope, no Sony, which is so weird. And here is her actual federal lawsuit where she conveniently dropped off Jed altogether, but they've got the agency group, Melissa Nathan, Jamie Heath, Steve Sarowitz. It ends with Us Movie LLC, Wayfarer Studios, and once again, no Sony. So what does this tell us? Well, first and foremost, that they still believe the public is stupid, that moms on the internet are stupid, that we don't understand these legal games and these PR games. And we keep proving that to be wrong time and time again. But let's just keep going with this strategy, Blake's PR team. They don't think we can see that it's utterly unreasonable to suggest that Sony ignored. You said Sony on May 29th, all of us just got raped. We all got raped, and we filed this with Sony, and Sony just didn't do anything about it. But we decided not to sue Sony. We decided to instead go after Justin Baldoni in a CRD complaint and then later a lawsuit. But we decided to leave Sony out of it conveniently, even though they would have been the ones that were holding all of these complaints. And nobody wants to publish it. So we're now turning to independent journalists and making them think that they have a scoop. Yeah, something stinks to the high heaven here. And I think we're going to see more tomorrow, obviously, when she is due to file her amendment.
So every time I try to stop discussing this case, Miss Lively has yet another trick up her sleeve. So what's going on right now? So Miss Lively has just subpoenaed 14 unique individuals in this ongoing lawsuit. And I took the liberty of color coding them, as well as organizing them into different categories for you guys, so you can more easily see Miss Lively's latest victims. And hopefully in the duration of this video, I'll be able to enlighten you guys as to the true motivations and information that her legal team is likely hoping to extract from these individuals. So as always, take a seat, grab a snack, because it's going to be another long night. So something that is so fascinating about this case, and something that I think everyone needs to be aware of, is there's two things happening simultaneously. There is the public relations war in the court of public opinion, and then there's also the legal battle happening simultaneously. Which one they care about more? I think they're interwoven and they are sort of connected in a lot of important ways. At the heart of it, these are celebrities and they care about what people think. And Blake Lively very much cares about what people think. In fact, she admitted that in some of the text messages. We're going to look at the letter that Justin Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, recently sent to Judge Lehman. I already feel so bad for Judge Lehman. I think he's exhausted by these people already. But what's important to note, and something that I don't think a lot of people noticed, is that Brian Friedman knows that we're going to be reading this as well. So he's not only sending this letter to communicate and hopefully achieve his goal, which in this case was getting the judge to intervene on these subpoenas, which are very, very broad in scope and not narrow at all and possibly against the law. And I think that there's little lines where I feel that he's actually communicating with us, okay? And this was one example. He said, "The Lively party's highly experienced counsel are surely well aware that the subpoenas they issued grossly exceed the scope of permissible discovery, as outlined in the federal rules." What I think is happening here is very, very obvious. I think that Blake Lively has completely taken over her legal team the same way that she's taken over this movie. And there's a lot of proof of that. One of the most obvious pieces of evidence for this theory, and I don't even think it's a theory, I think it's a fact, is when her attorneys were basically forced to tell Judge Lehman, hey, Blake Lively doesn't want to be deposed by Brian Friedman. Anyone who has so much as watched more than one episode of Suits knows that you don't get to select who deposes you. And Judge Lehman, if you look at the transcript, he basically laughed at them and was like, why are you asking that? Sometimes you have very, very high-strung, bossy clients who say, I don't care what the law is. That's what you're going to do. I'm not being deposed by Brian Friedman, so make it happen. And they're like, I can't do that. And obviously, it doesn't seem like Miss Lively is used to hearing the word no in her life. So I think that it's very likely that her legal team is quite frustrated with her. So I fully believe that these very far-reaching subpoenas are actually evidence of Lively's behavior behind the scenes. And when you have someone like Brian Friedman saying, the Lively party's highly experienced lawyers are surely well aware that these subpoenas are ridiculous, these are highly experienced lawyers. Of course they know this. But what I think is happening here is that Lively is weaponizing the legal system and really using it as an extension and an arm into the PR battle. So then there's another internal battle happening between the lawyers and her and the PR people, where the lawyers are like, we're lawyers, we're not PR people. We need to follow the law. We need to appear respectable. And the very last thing that the lawyers probably want is for the judge to catch on to the fact that Lively is basically taking advantage of the legal system to fight the PR battle. That's not what the legal system is for, right? And then we have even more evidence of this when Brian Friedman says, it appears that these subpoenas are more than anything else a media ploy, having been promptly leaked alongside a lengthy and combative statement by the Lively party's legal team. So as soon as these subpoenas were issued, they also released a statement in the Hollywood Reporter. So like I said, we have the legal battle which is happening, which is literally physically overlaid on top of the public relations battle. And we have Lively's lawyer who came out in tandem with these subpoenas being issued saying, we will now receive all of the receipts that unsurprisingly are nowhere to be found on Mr. Brian Friedman's website, and like Miss Lively, those receipts will have their day in court. So the reason why that statement is so ridiculous is that these subpoenas that they're seeking are not between Lively and other people. They don't know what receipts they're gonna find. They're guessing. They are basically reverse engineering a case here. It seems that Lively is fully convinced that all of the outrage toward her in August was purely a smear campaign, was not organic at all, and is fully and wholeheartedly relying on this idea that she's going to find some kind of smoking gun, which does not at this point in time exist. Otherwise, she would have included it in her original complaint and her original lawsuit. And if there were messages between her and Justin Baldoni where he was admitting something, she would have included that. So we've really seen all of her evidence. There's not a lot of it, and it's really obvious that they're hoping to use these subpoenas to uncover something, and that's why they are so broad. And also, I don't even think logistically, if they were to receive 3 years worth of text messages, they even have the resources to read all of that. They're a small team of lawyers. But despite the fact that these subpoenas are fairly meritless, if I was on Baldoni's legal team, I would be concerned about the fact that some of them were issued to the cell phone providers themselves. And we already heard from Brian Friedman that one of the cell phone providers have already agreed to providing the information being sought through the subpoenas. And I have a theory that it's likely the cell phone provider who's being so cooperative is likely T-Mobile. If you guys know, Mint Mobile was partially owned by Ryan Reynolds, and he actually sold it to T-Mobile for $1.35 billion. So that could provide an explanation as to why one of the cell phone providers is being so cooperative, despite the fact that these subpoenas are being contested in court. So let's go through each one of these subpoenas so we can better understand exactly what Lively is looking for. So the first group I put together is the Wayfair group. Lively is subpoenaing both the executives of the company as well as the staff. So what is she looking for? Her first victim, of course, is Justin Baldoni. She is seeking every single call, text, data, location from December 2022 up until today. That is the same for Jamie Heath. It is the same for Steve Sarowitz, who is the co-founder, the billionaire, you guys know him. And then also someone named Tara Hanks, who is the president of Wayfair. So the reason why this is so bizarre, and I flagged this, is because they're seeking the same thing, every single text, email, piece of data, her location for the past 3 years. And the reason why I think this is further evidence of either, number one, Lively has the dumbest lawyers in the entire world, which I don't believe, or number two, this is the result of Lively throwing a temper tantrum, because Tara Hanks didn't join the company until March of 2024. So what could you possibly want from her for 2 years previously? You want to see her doctor's appointments? You want to see her messaging her kids? I'm just reading right now that she has 5 daughters. So you want to see all her messages between her daughters? Like, why could you possibly want that? It's completely irrelevant. Objection, relevance, there's no relevance. And it's just evidence that this is Blake Lively. They are also seeking the records, same thing, for the staff, someone named Milika Doskovich, who is the vice president, same thing, December 2022 up until today. And then someone named Jeriesi Blackman, another red flag because she's seeking everything from his phone from December 2022 up until today, but he did not join until July of 2024. Make it make sense. So Lively's next group of victims is everybody at the agency group, which is the public relations firm that Lively believes is responsible for the smear campaign. This was actually the only subpoena that made sense to me, that she actually got the dates right. So she wants Melissa Nathan's cell phone from July 2024 up until today. So that's a little bit more reasonable because that's when she was actually involved in the situation. She's also seeking Jennifer Abel, who was originally Justin Baldoni's PR person and then moved over to TAG. And then also 3 team members, Katie Case, Brianna Butler, Matthew Mitchell. Sorry, Blake Lively wants your cell phones. The next victims of this flagrant invasion of privacy are people by the name of Matthew and Henry, who work at Jones Works, which was the public relations firm that originally employed Jennifer Abel before she left, quit, and then the lady that ran that company, who was a little bit wacko, was ultimately the one that gave her cell phone to Blake Lively, where she found those text messages that she later doctored for the New York Times article. I personally don't think these guys know anything, but for whatever reason, Lively wants their entire digital existence for the past 3 years. So I'm sorry, Matthew Gibson and Henry Hargitay. I hope that you guys weren't cheating on your spouses, because we're gonna find out. And then lastly, we have Jed Wallace, who's on an island all on his own. Of course, Blake Lively wants every single text message, every single Google search that he's ever made for the past 3 years. This guy is a little bit weird though, so I am curious to see what comes from him. These subpoenas are so utterly insulting that I think Brian Friedman should respond by subpoenaing Taylor Swift's correspondence with Blake Lively, because surely if she was being harassed, she would have shared it with her best friend.
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are working overtime to sway the public opinion. First, let's talk about these alleged 3 HR complaints against Justin Baldoni. The main reason why I do not believe a single one of these HR complaints is because Sony themselves have denied any HR complaints being filed against Justin Baldoni. Let's remember that because we have that on record. Now we'll talk about that more so at the end, but let's get into the details of these complaints. I had been hearing about these HR complaints, but today was the day someone actually sent them to me. And the person that sent them to me, they said a lot of people have them, which I find weird. That is weird. We'll get to that in a second. I think everyone is waiting to see what she includes in the next round, but Ryan is not a monster and Blake was definitely a victim. Justin's behavior sounds batshit crazy and predatory. From what I've heard, these complaints have been sent to TMZ, Daily Mail, Page 6. I mean, these are outlets that have definitely published things that are not true. They have not even published these HR complaints because they are afraid to be sued for defamation. So Blake and Ryan's team, they're sending these out to these media outlets that they thought would publish them, but they won't even publish them. So what's the next best step? Of course, TikTokers, influencers that are covering this because they're trying to win over the public opinion. Why the media outlets wouldn't publish these is because names are redacted as well as dates. So that's a little odd. The first alleged HR complaint is who we would assume about Blake Lively. It sounds like Blake Lively's driver kicked Justin Baldoni out of the car because he made everyone feel uncomfortable. He was talking about his corn addiction. According to this complaint, Baldoni also spoke about not accepting no from a woman, and allegedly this was all caught on the car's camera. Notice the complaints were sent to Sony, not Wayfarer. On here you guys can see the date of the complaint. It says M. And Candace Owens also received these complaints, it seems. She pointed out that in Blake Lively's lawsuit, they had mentioned that as a result of Mr. Baldoni's behavior on May 29th, 2023, another cast member lodged an SH complaint against Mr. Baldoni. So this brings us to the second HR complaint. The second HR complaint is who we assume is Jenny Slate. And basically this complaint is saying that this person was uncomfortable because Justin Baldoni put his hands on her butt. He claimed that he was helping her with her posture, but she said she was uncomfortable. He told her to then go to HR allegedly, and she did, and 3 hours later he apologized. And then this brings us to the third and final HR complaint. And this is who people are assuming is Isabella, who plays young Lily. This HR complaint is alleging Baldoni had asked one of the actresses to speak privately. He basically asked her, have you ever climaxed on camera? And she said, why is this even necessary? Like, that's not even in the script. It goes on to allege that he whispered in her ear, I think we should add it in. Show me what you got. Said she wasn't comfortable. She didn't want to do this, but he told her, like, you're not going to hold up filming. So she felt she had to do it. She was doing it. He then put his hands on her thighs, then told her, come on, like, you can do better than that. It goes on to allege that he was so close to her and she could feel his breath, like, on her face. It was even, like, melting her makeup off. He whispers to her, you know how hot this is, right? He then asked her to practice the scene again. He got closer to her. So let's really think about this. 3 different actresses all went to HR with these complaints, like they're serious complaints. And they're just like, no, keep going. And all these actresses just kept filming with this director because they were filming with him and he was also the director. But you want to know what's really funny about all of this? We have this Variety article. Literally states, back in August, when the coverage of the mysterious feud between Lively and Baldoni began to spiral on social media and in the press, Variety inquired of Sony whether an HR complaint had been filed against Baldoni during the production, and they said no. Funny enough, all these complaints were sent to Sony and not Wayfarer, but they would go tell Variety, no, we've never had an HR complaint. This is all a ploy to win over the public opinion, and it's not working. Justin Baldoni's team is fighting the subpoenas. Lively's team is now saying that Justin is afraid to produce phone records. But Baldoni's attorney is letting us know that Blake and Ryan are not the FBI. Another Baldoni attorney, Mitchell Schuster, wrote a letter to Judge Lemon in response to Blake Lively's subpoena request. And he called the subpoenas, in which Lively and Reynolds are requesting access to years of phone and text records, location data, and other information, flagrantly overbroad. He goes on to say it is hard to overstate how broad, invasive, and atypical these subpoenas truly are. This is civil litigation, not a criminal prosecution, and the Lively parties are not the FBI. He argues that the requested records are wildly disproportionate to the needs of the case and unnecessarily invades the privacy of untold numbers of third parties, including family, friends, business partners, and quite literally any other person with whom any of the targets have communicated with over a period of years. He also claims that the subpoenas are more about media attention than the case itself, dubbing them a media ploy. Baldoni's team also claimed that they attempted to raise the issue with the subpoenas and resolve the dispute with Lively's team to no avail. And now Schuster is requesting that Judge Lemon address the issue as soon as possible. In response to Baldoni's team, a spokesperson for Blake Lively referenced Brian Friedman's previous claim of having receipts that would allegedly prove Lively was a bully. The spokesperson tells people if they have so many receipts, why are they so afraid to produce them? Hey, Blake Lively's team, they did produce them. We have formed these opinions from the evidence produced by Baldoni's team. You can find it here on this website if you would like to take a look. The spokesperson goes on to say Mr. Baldoni and the Wayfarer parties have already admitted that Miss Lively raised concerns multiple times. They have admitted they created a plan in case she made her grievances public in which they planned to plant stories suggesting Miss Lively was a bully and weaponizing feminism. They have admitted that they were able to bury anyone. So this person is referencing the text messages, between Baldoni's PR team. Let's also remember the text messages that they cherry-picked, put in a certain order in order to manipulate the audience. Because in Baldoni's countersuit, he showed shows how they cherry pick certain messages, put them in certain orders. And the fact that Blake Lively's team is only speaking of a smear campaign at this time, we have not heard anything from them about SH after that footage had dropped. Because again, they were caught in a lie because they lied about the footage. They said that certain things happened that didn't happen during that footage. And now they want this 2.5 years of all these phone records from Baldoni and his team. And that just proves that they literally have nothing. That's why they need this. Because they have nothing, in my opinion.
Is anyone else starting to think that Blake's lawyers are not actually her legal team? Go with me on this. I'm not saying that they're not lawyers, that they're not called to the bar, that they can't be her legal team, but especially the last couple of days, that doesn't seem to be the function that she wants from them. So look at these subpoenas. She has asked for Justin Baldoni, etc.'s phone records, including absolutely everything they used their phone for the past 2 years, since December 2022. And when they're saying, whoa, that's an invasion of privacy, that has our health records, that has spousal communications, which are privileged and not admissible usually in court, that's way too much information. I mean, would you want anybody to have your phone records from 2 years? When they are saying that's overbroad, as lawyers on TikTok have said, that's way overbroad, no one should ask for that, they're coming back and saying, oh, what do you got to hide? You're afraid to give us those records. I think that this legal team knew that that subpoena would not work, that they would obviously protest and say that's such an invasion of privacy, and that they planned to come back with this argument of, well, what are you hiding? Not a legal team. This is a PR team. This is all about image rehabilitation. And maybe it has been from the start, because the smear campaign allegations seem to be a way to cover face for her own bad interviews, her own bad marketing choices. When things didn't go very well, when she was getting some public backlash, she looked to blame Justin Baldoni for the way that she was perceived in the public. And I think that she is still doing that and still trying to use all of her resources, including her legal team, to rehab her image. And it's not really...
This is how I want to be perceived in the film. You don't play any character, Blake. You play you. This was the perfect storm. You have no creativity juice inside of you, not even a drop. Because if you were that talented, if you were that creative, then you would have the insight, the foresight, the intuition to pick up a book and say, there's something here. But you don't have that talent. You're a parasite. You climb onto other people's projects and you want to dominate and you want to take it for your own. So what you do, of which you're very good at, you're very calculating. You're very insightful to see somebody that is naive, somebody that is sincerely with a good heart, and somebody who would look up to you. And that is why, allegedly, I believe that that is how you lied to the young Lily Bloom and said Taylor was the one that had an input into giving you this part. It was my friend, Taylor Swift, because you weaponize those relationships in order for you to successfully get what you want. You will use everyone, you will use anyone to get what you want. You have the criminalities of lying, of swindling, of playing the game and finding out who will fall into your trap, and none other than Justin Baldoni. And that is why this was the perfect storm. Because when you thought that you could stamp on him, like the new boy that had come to school, you peeped it the same way you did with Colin Hoover. She's not that sophisticated. She's not Hollywood quite yet. So you know what? I can capitalize on her, and you manipulated because you understood that this feature film, that it ends with us, could be a sequel. This could truly make you a star. You are going to be the most infamous woman in Hollywood because everything is going to end with you. Because this time around, when you sank your teeth into your prey, you had no idea that Justin Baldoni, let me just make sure that I have his name here, Steve Sarowitz, is the billionaire businessman who co-founded the film studio Wayfarer with Justin Baldoni, and Sarowitz has bankrolled many of Wayfarer's movies, including It Ends With Us. He had billionaire backing.
Even on the weekend, these two are keeping me so busy, and I'm grateful. Hello, my fam. Perez Hilton here, the queen of all media, the original influencer, and the #1 expert on the It Ends With Us saga. As I told you a few days ago, high school graduate and former cheerleader Blake Lively filed subpoenas against Justin Baldoni and many other parties, wanting a lot of information. She is needing receipts. The former B-lister has filed subpoenas not just against Baldoni, but also the billionaire co-founder of his production company, Steve Sarowitz, his producing partner, Jamie Heath, his publicist, Jen Abel, his crisis PR expert, Melissa Nathan, that digital guru, Jed Wallace, and even more people that work at his production company, Wayfarer Studios. Plus, she's filed subpoenas against phone providers, email providers, and it is exhaustive. The shampoo company owner is asking for call logs, text logs, data logs, and cell site location information dating back to December 1st, 2022. And Baldoni's lawyers think that this is an overreach. Yesterday, his lawyers submitted a letter to Judge Lyman overseeing both consolidated cases in federal court in New York. Baldoni wants to prevent the plantation princess from getting all that she's asking for. Like, why is the Woody Allen apologist asking for location history? How would that impact anything? I don't know that. I really want to know. Can somebody explain to me in the comments section? A lawyer for Baldoni says that the subpoenas, the many subpoenas, are flagrantly overboard, stating, quote, "It is hard to overstate how broad, invasive, and atypical these subpoenas truly are. This is civil litigation, not a criminal prosecution. And the Lively parties are not the FBI." Ooh. As I'm sure you know by now, the up-and-coming wardrobe stylist is suing her director, producer, and co-star in It Ends With Us for sexual harassment and retaliation, a smear campaign. However, he has countered back in his $400 million lawsuit against her and the ex-husband of Scarlett Johansson, claiming that they and her publicist Leslie Sloan were the ones to orchestrate a smear campaign against him. And he provided receipts in his amended lawsuit. And he's also suing Taylor Swift's former bestie for extortion. Explaining why the soon-to-be former actress filed so many subpoenas, her team says that the aim is to expose the full web of individuals involved in the efforts to tarnish her reputation. In response, his lawyers have argued that the uncredited director of It Ends With Us is engaged in a massive fishing expedition. She needs receipts. And in their letter to Judge Lyman, I think Baldoni's lawyer has made a very compelling argument. He says that these subpoenas are, quote, wildly disproportionate to the needs of the case and unnecessarily invades the privacy of untold numbers of third parties, including family, friends, business partners, and quite literally any other person with whom any of the targets have communicated with over a period of years. Woo! It just got spicier. Wait for it. Baldoni's attorney also says that the subpoenas are a media ploy, given that they were leaked to the press along with a combative statement on Wednesday. His attorney states that that is hypocritical, referring to her team's objections to Baldoni's alleged media campaign, which they're also engaged in a media campaign. Baldoni's lawyer added that they are not objecting to her media statement nor to her use of third-party subpoenas. However, quote, the Wayfarer parties are using such tools themselves, albeit in a far narrower and legally permissible fashion. And now we wait. Baldoni's lawyer asked the judge to address the dispute at the soonest possible opportunity. And of course, the Nepo babies' attorneys have responded to Baldoni's letter to the judge, submitting their own letter. And they also released a statement to the media saying, quote, if they have so many receipts, why are they so afraid to produce them? Why have they not subpoenaed Taylor Swift's communications with her former bestie yet? We need this. A spokesperson for the accused extortionist argues that the requested records will expose the remaining pieces of the story. Quote, Mr. Baldoni and the Wayfarer parties have already admitted that Miss Lively raised concerns multiple times. They have admitted that they created a plan in case she made her grievances public, in which they planned to plant stories suggesting Miss Lively was a bully and weaponizing feminism. They have admitted that they bragged and laughed at how negatively the narrative had shifted against Miss Lively. Pause. He never did that. His publicist and his crisis PR expert did that privately amongst the two of them. He had nothing to do with that. In fact, they included in their amended lawsuit repeated receipts where he was rising above it all. He was way cooler, calmer, collected, and kinder than I would have been against this Z-lister. Back to the spokesperson for the Khaleesi wannabe, quote, they have admitted they bragged and laughed at how negatively the narrative had shifted against Miss Lively and how successful they were at confusing people. They have admitted that they said they started to see a shift on social. No, this is not true. They have admitted that they said they started to see a shift on social due largely to Jed and his team's efforts to shift the narrative, yet they deny that they implemented their plan. They never said that. Lies! What they said was that the narrative started to change organically. That is what they said. That is what their receipts showed. The spokesperson for the Never With Teeth icon wraps up things saying, now they want to block the very discovery that would expose them. If they didn't do it, they would have nothing to hide. All right. You want to play this game? Taylor Swift, get ready. Pull that trigger. Pull that trigger. They are trying my patience. Thoughts on everything that we've learned today, the latest discovery? Let me know what you're thinking in the comments section. And as always, thank you for your support and watching until the very end. You are an A+ human in my book. Mwah!
I think I found evidence, and it ends with us, as to why the cast turned on Justin so quickly. I had heard people say that it was to get other jobs, or that they had been wined and dined by Ryan and Blake and love bombed. I think I talked about triangulation in a past video where Blake triangulated people against Justin in a negative way, but I also think that a lot of other creators have been talking about the love bombing that's been going on, about getting these people opportunities. Brandon Sklenner was a fairly unknown person before It Ends With Us, and now he is starring in a major motion picture with Paul Feig directing and producing, which is Blake Lively's director producer for A Simple Favor and A Simple Favor 2. So I think Brandon got a simple favor here to get this role. The other thing that perplexed me was, why would Justin's podcast co-host turn on him so quickly? Liz Plank, she has a history of being friends with Ryan Reynolds. This is from 2022, a post that is still up on her TikTok where she talks about being featured in this documentary, Welcome to Wrexham. I know Candace Owens talked about this, and another couple of creators talked about this as well. I'll tag them if I can find them, their handles. So there's loss of credibility in them turning on him as evidence of admission of guilt or Justin's guilt. But this, for me, when the cast turned on him and when she turned on him, I was like, oh, well, maybe he's actually guilty. This, for me, was the biggest piece of damning evidence against Justin. And when we look and follow the money trail, follow the opportunities of, oh, we got to fly out. She talks about in this video how she got to fly out and we got movie money and we got so excited to be a part of this. They're talking about the money. Even in this clip, she's talking about the money of being close to Ryan Reynolds. Well, you get movie money. They're talking about the money in this clip. Go watch this clip. It's on her account. She's probably going to block me as soon. I just reshared it, but she's probably going to block me soon. So when you're thinking about, oh, if you're still on Team Blake, I'm still open to hear evidence as to the contrary. But I think if we look at the opportunities that Ryan and Blake have given these cast members and friends of Justin to take aside, it kind of makes that credibility go into the trash. Hollywood is a game of PR and climbing a ladder, of getting friends and levels with one person to then hop to the next level. That is all this game is. So if I can get to this level, then I can be friends with and make connections with. It's all about a networking ladder hop. And it seems like that's what the cast and crew and even the podcast co-host are doing here.